It was on a rainy Tuesday evening when everything started to unravel. The house was unusually quiet that day, except for the sound of raindrops hammering against the kitchen window. I was sitting at the dining table, holding a cup of lukewarm tea, staring at the spot on my finger where my wedding ring used to be. For 32 years, that ring had never left my hand, not once. It was more than just a piece of jewelry. It was the symbol of everything my late husband and I built together. And now it was gone. Welcome to Voice of Auntie Jane Stories. Make sure you like and subscribe for your top-notch stories. Let us know in the comment section where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video. I had spent the entire morning tearing the house apart, drawers, closets, even the laundry baskets. At first I thought maybe I had misplaced it. Maybe I left it by the bathroom sink while washing my hands, or maybe it slipped off while I was gardening. But as the hours passed, a heavy feeling settled deep in my chest. Someone had taken it. My daughter Emily came home from work around 6 p.m., soaked from the rain and humming to herself. She looked happy, too happy. I tried to act normal, but my heart was pounding. "Hey, Mom," she said, hanging her coat on the rack. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I hesitated. "Emily, have you seen my wedding ring? I can't find it anywhere." She froze for just a fraction of a second, but I saw it, the flicker of panic in her eyes. "No," she said quickly, avoiding my gaze as she took off her shoes. "Why would I see it?" I didn't say anything for a moment. I just watched her, my stomach twisting. Something wasn't right. Later that night, while Emily was in the shower, I noticed her handbag sitting on the couch. Normally, I would never go through her things. I raised her to have her privacy, but desperation does strange things to a person. I unzipped the bag with trembling hands, and what I saw inside made my blood run cold. There was a receipt from a pawn shop downtown dated yesterday. The item description: 14K gold ring with 3 small diamonds. My heart sank. That was my ring. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I clutched the receipt in my hand so tightly it nearly tore. When Emily came out of the bathroom, I was sitting there waiting for her, the receipt on the table between us. "Emily," I said, my voice shaking, "do you want to explain this to me?" Her face went pale when she saw it. She didn't even try to lie this time. "Mom, I can explain," she whispered, but her voice was trembling. "You sold my wedding ring?" My voice cracked. "The one your father gave me." Tears filled her eyes. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I needed the money." "For what?" I asked, my chest tight. "What could possibly be so important that you'd take the one thing I have left from your father?" She hesitated, then blurted out, "I used it to pay for the deposit on an apartment in New York. I got accepted into a performing arts program, Mom. This is my dream." I sat there in silence, my mind racing. On one hand, I wanted to scream. On the other, I wanted to cry. This was my daughter, my only child, but the betrayal cut so deep I could barely breathe. I didn't know what to say. I just stood up, walked to my room, and shut the door. I could hear her sobbing softly on the couch, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. Not yet. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. My late husband's voice echoed in my mind. He had worked 2 jobs to buy me that ring. He would have been heartbroken to know it was gone, and worse, that our own daughter was the one who sold it. I didn't sleep at all that night. Before we dive in deeply, let us know in the comments what country or which city you're watching this story from. We'd love to know how far this story travels. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen. My eyes felt heavy from not sleeping, and my heart was still sore. When I stepped out of my bedroom, Emily was standing by the counter, nervously stirring sugar into 2 mugs. She looked like a child again, small, guilty, and scared. "Mom," she said softly, "can we talk?" I wanted to ignore her, but my heart wouldn't let me. I sat down at the table, folding my arms. She slid a mug toward me, then sat across from me, twisting her fingers together. "Look, I know what I did was wrong," she began, her voice shaky. "But this program, it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance. I didn't know how else to get the money." "Emily," I said, my voice low, "do you have any idea what that ring meant to me? To us?" Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time I didn't look away. "It wasn't just a ring," I continued. "Your father proposed to me with that ring on the back porch of my parents' house. He worked double shifts at the factory to afford it. I wore it every single day for 32 years. That ring has seen every fight, every laugh, every heartbreak we ever had. And now it's sitting in some pawn shop window because you decided your dream was more important." Emily covered her face with her hands and sobbed, but I was too hurt to comfort her. "Do you even know how much they gave you for it?" I asked sharply. She sniffled and nodded. $1,000. I almost laughed, a bitter, hollow laugh. $1,000? Emily, that ring was worth 4 times that, and you didn't even ask me. I could see guilt all over her face, but she didn't say a word. The silence in that kitchen was suffocating. By noon, I had made up my mind I was going to the pawn shop. I grabbed my coat and my umbrella, and as I was leaving, Emily rushed after me. "Mom, wait!" she cried, grabbing my arm. "Please don't do this. If you go there, they might not even have it anymore. What if someone already bought it?" Her words sent a cold chill through me. The thought of another woman wearing my ring, my husband's ring, made my stomach twist. "Then I need to know," I said firmly, pulling my arm free. The drive downtown was tense. The rain had turned into a drizzle, but the streets were still slick, reflecting the gray sky. My hands were gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. When I pulled up in front of the pawn shop, I sat in the car for a moment, gathering my courage. My heart was pounding as I walked inside. The bell above the door jingled, and a man with a scruffy beard looked up from behind the counter. Afternoon, ma'am," he said casually. "Looking to buy or sell?" I swallowed hard and held out the receipt. "I'm here for this. The ring, is it still here?" He took the slip of paper, glanced at it, and frowned. "Hold on, let me check." I stood there, my hands shaking as he disappeared into the back room. The shop smelled like old wood and metal, and the display cases were filled with watches, necklaces, and random trinkets. My eyes darted to every corner, praying I'd see it. When the man returned, my stomach dropped. He was holding a small black velvet tray. "This the one?" he asked, setting it gently on the counter. It was my ring, my beautiful, simple gold band with 3 tiny diamonds that sparkled even under the shop's dim lights. "Yes," I whispered, my voice catching. "Well," he said, scratching his beard, "it's priced at $3,800. If you want it back, that's what it'll cost you." My knees nearly gave out. $3,800, but my daughter sold it for $1,000. He shrugged. "We got to make a profit. You want it or not?" I walked out of that shop in a daze. I couldn't afford that much money, not on my retirement income. The rain had started again, soaking me as I stood by my car, staring at the wet pavement. When I got home, Emily was pacing in the living room. "Well?" she asked nervously. "They still have it," I said quietly, hanging up my coat, "but they want almost $4,000 to get it back." Her face went pale. "Mom, I don't have that kind of money." "Exactly," I snapped. "And neither do I." She sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. I just stood there, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. That night, we didn't speak much. I made dinner, but neither of us ate more than a few bites. The house felt like it was holding its breath. Later, I overheard Emily on the phone in her room, whispering urgently to someone. "I can't back out now," she said. "I already signed the lease. I just have to figure out how to pay the first month's rent before the deadline." My chest tightened. She had already committed to this dream of hers, no matter what it cost me or us. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The house was quiet, but my mind was not. I sat at the kitchen table with a piece of paper and started jotting numbers down my savings account, my monthly bills, my emergency fund. Even if I drained almost everything, I still wouldn't have enough to buy that ring back. I heard footsteps coming down the hallway. Emily walked in wearing her work clothes, her hair tied back hastily. She looked exhausted, maybe from crying all night, but she still had that stubborn set in her jaw. "Good morning," she said softly, as if testing the air. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I folded the paper and tucked it under my coffee mug. "We need to talk," I said finally. Emily sat down across from me. "I can't get that ring back," I said, my voice flat. "Even if I emptied my bank account, I'd still fall short." Her shoulders slumped, but then she straightened up. "Mom, I'll find a way to pay for it. I'll pick up extra shifts. I'll do side gigs." "Emily," I cut in, my patience snapping. "This isn't just about the money. It's about trust. You went behind my back. You sold something that wasn't yours, and you didn't even think about what it meant to me." Her lip trembled. I was desperate. I stood up suddenly, my chair scraping the floor. "So was your father when he worked himself half to death just so I could wear that ring on my finger. But he never stole, Emily. Not once." The room fell silent. She didn't say another word, just grabbed her bag and left for work. The rest of the day, I felt like I was walking through mud. Every sound in the house seemed louder, sharper, the ticking of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator. I couldn't sit still. Around noon, I grabbed my keys and drove back downtown. But this time, I didn't go to the pawn shop. I went to the Performing Arts Center where Emily said she had been accepted. I wanted to see for myself what all of this was for what was worth betraying her own mother. When I arrived, the building was buzzing with activity. Young men and women in rehearsal clothes were running lines, stretching, laughing together. I felt out of place, like I'd stepped into a world that didn't belong to me. At the reception desk, I asked to speak with someone about admissions. A young man in a blazer came over, smiling politely. "Ma'am, are you here for a tour?" he asked. "No," I said quickly. "My daughter, Emily Carter, was accepted into your program. I just wanted to understand what she's getting into." He nodded and pulled up something on his computer. "Yes, Emily Carter. She signed up for the fall semester. That's a great program, very competitive. But it's not cheap. Tuition and fees for the first term alone are over $6,000. I felt my stomach drop. "$6,000? "Yes, ma'am. Has she paid the deposit yet?" I nodded stiffly. "Yes." "Good," he said, smiling again. "She's got a bright future here if she commits to work." I thanked him and walked back to my car, feeling like someone had punched me in the gut. $6,000, and she thought selling my ring was a solution? That wouldn't even cover a fraction of her expenses. When I got home that evening, Emily was already back, sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Where were you?" she asked, glancing up. "I went to the school," I said bluntly. Her eyes widened. "You what?" "I wanted to see it with my own eyes," I said, dropping my purse on the table. "Emily, do you realize you need over $6,000 just to start? Selling my ring barely made a dent. How are you planning to pay for the rest?" She looked down at her lap, avoiding my eyes. "I'll figure it out," she muttered. "Figure it out?" I repeated, my voice rising. "This isn't just about you anymore. You've dragged me into this. You've risked something that can't be replaced for a plan you haven't even thought through." She stood up, her eyes flashing. "I have thought it through, Mom. You just don't believe in me. You never have." The word stung like a slap. "That's not true," I said, my voice breaking. "I've believed in you since the day you were born. But believing in you doesn't mean letting you destroy everything in your path to get what you want." She stormed off to her room and slammed the door so hard the picture frames rattled on the wall. For the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't even recognize my own daughter. The house was quiet for the rest of the evening, but I could feel Emily's anger radiating through her closed bedroom door. I tried distracting myself by wiping the counters that were already clean, straightening the throw pillows, rearranging the books on the shelf, but my mind wouldn't settle. Every time I passed the hallway, I stopped and stared at her door, wanting to knock, wanting to talk, but pride kept me frozen. By 9 p.m., I heard her door creak open. She stepped out, still in her work clothes, her hair a mess from lying in bed. "Mom," she said, her voice softer now, "can we just not fight tonight?" I wanted to say yes, but the wound was still raw. "Emily, we can't keep pretending this didn't happen. You crossed a line." She sighed, sat down on the armrest of the couch, and stared at the floor. "I know, and I'm sorry. I just thought you'd be proud of me for taking control of my life, for chasing something bigger." I sat across from her. "Proud of you? Emily, I am proud of you, but proud doesn't erase pain. You hurt me deeply. You didn't just sell a ring, you sold a memory, a promise, a piece of your father." Her eyes welled up, and for a moment I thought she might break down again. Instead, she stood up suddenly. "Fine, I'll fix it," she said, grabbing her phone. "I'll find a way to get it back." "Emily," I started, but she was already dialing. She paced the living room as she spoke into the phone. "Hi, yes, I wanted to ask about buying back an item that I pawned. It's a gold wedding ring, 3 small diamonds each. I have the receipt." "Okay, yes, I understand. Thank you." She hung up and dropped onto the couch, defeated. "They said we have 30 days before they put it up for sale," she said quietly. "But after that, anyone can buy it." 30 days. My stomach twisted. That was my deadline, my race against time to save the last thing I had of my husband. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. If Emily was serious about fixing this, then she was going to work for it. I stood by her bed until she opened her eyes, groggy and confused. "Get dressed," I said. "What? Why?" "Because we're going to figure this out together. You want to be treated like an adult? Then you're going to act like one." She groaned, but got up. Within an hour, we were out the door, driving across town. Our first stop was a community center that had a bulletin board full of odd job postings, babysitting, dog walking, tutoring. I stood beside Emily as she reluctantly wrote down numbers. "You're really serious about this?" she asked, stuffing the slips into her pocket. "Dead serious," I said. "You made this mess. Now you're going to help clean it up." The next few days were a whirlwind. I watched Emily rush from one side job to another, walking dogs in the freezing rain, babysitting 3 rowdy toddlers for a neighbor, even helping an elderly woman clean her garage. She came home exhausted every night, collapsing on the couch with barely enough energy to eat dinner. Part of me felt sorry for her, but another part of me was quietly relieved. Maybe she was finally learning the value of what she had taken. But one night, just as things seemed to be moving forward, I got a call that changed everything. It was almost 11 p.m. when the phone rang. I answered groggily, thinking it might be a wrong number. "Mrs. Carter?" a man's voice said on the other end. "Yes?" "This is Officer Daniels with the local police department. Do you have a daughter named Emily Carter?" My heart stopped. "Yes, what happened?" "She's here at the station," he said. "We need you to come down and pick her up." My blood ran cold. "Is she hurt?" "No, ma'am, but we need to speak with you in person." I hung up, my hands shaking. Emily wasn't in her room. Her bed was still made. I grabbed my keys and rushed out into the night, my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the sound of the rain hitting the windshield. When I arrived at the police station, I saw Emily sitting on a bench in the lobby, her arms crossed and her face pale. "What happened?" I demanded, rushing over to her. Before she could answer, a tall police officer approached. "Mrs. Carter, your daughter was involved in a disturbance at a convenience store. Apparently there was an argument over a bill she couldn't pay." I turned to Emily, stunned. "You what?" "It wasn't like that," she protested. "I was just trying to cash my paycheck and the machine said it was invalid. Then the clerk accused me of trying to scam them and I—" She raised her voice. The officer said calmly, "It scared the clerk enough that they called us. No charges are being pressed, but we thought you should know." I thanked the officer and took Emily by the arm, practically dragging her to the car. "What were you thinking?" I demanded once we were inside. "I was just trying to get the money," she shouted back, her voice breaking. "I thought if I worked hard enough, I could fix everything before you hated me forever." Her words pierced me, but I gripped the steering wheel and drove us home in silence, both of us shaking her from fear, me from anger and heartbreak. When we got home, the house felt heavier than usual, as though it was holding its breath. Emily stormed straight to her room, slamming the door behind her. I stood in the hallway, soaked from the rain, clutching my keys so tightly they dug into my palm. I wanted to yell, but instead I sat down on the couch and put my face in my hands. My heart was still racing from the police station, but beneath the anger was something else. Fear. Fear that I was losing my daughter. I stayed up late that night, just sitting in the dimly lit living room. Around midnight, I heard Emily's door open. She came out quietly and sat on the opposite end of the couch. Her eyes were puffy, her face pale. "I didn't mean for things to get this bad," she whispered. I looked at her but didn't speak. "I just wanted to make you proud," she said again, her voice breaking. "But every time I try to do something for myself, it feels like I'm letting you down." Her words cut deep, because I knew she meant them. I sighed and finally spoke. "Emily, I'm not angry at your dreams. I'm angry at the way you went about it. If you had just come to me, we could have figured something out together. Instead, you chose to do it behind my back, and now we're here." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry, Mom. I really am." For a moment, I considered softening, telling her everything would be okay. But I couldn't let this moment pass without her truly understanding the gravity of what she'd done. "Sorry isn't enough this time," I said quietly. "You're going to make this right, Emily. All of it. Starting tomorrow, we're going to find a way to buy that ring back together." She nodded slowly as if she knew there was no arguing with me this time. The next day, we got to work. I called in a favor from an old friend at the church who was looking for extra help organizing a charity fundraiser. Emily and I spent hours folding flyers, stacking tables, sorting donations. By the end of the day, she was exhausted, her hair stuck to her forehead from sweat, but there was something different about her, a quiet determination. "Not so glamorous, huh?" I said as we loaded the last box into the car. She gave me a small smile. "No, but it feels good to actually do something." Over the next 2 weeks, our days were packed. We held a yard sale with everything we could spare: old furniture, kitchenware, books. I even sold my grandmother's antique tea set, something I swore I'd never part with. The neighbors came, curious at first, then supportive. Some of them knew about the missing ring, and they pressed money into my hand quietly, saying, "We hope you get it back." One evening, after a long day of hauling boxes and counting small bills, Emily came into the kitchen holding a small envelope. "What's that?" I asked, wiping my hands on a towel. She opened it and dumped out a wad of cash. "Tips," she said, smiling tiredly. "The woman I babysat for today paid me double, said she admired how hard I was working." I felt a lump form in my throat. For the first time since this nightmare started, I saw a glimpse of the little girl I used to know, the one who once sold lemonade on the corner, just to buy me flowers for Mother's Day. But just when things were starting to feel like they might turn around, something happened that shook me to my core. It was a Friday evening, and I was sitting in the kitchen going over the money we had saved so far. We were still a good $1,500 short, but I was starting to believe we might actually make it before the deadline. Suddenly, I heard the front door open and close quickly. Emily walked in, but something was off. She was breathing hard, her hair damp with sweat, and her hands were clenched into fists. "Emily?" I asked cautiously. "What's wrong?" She dropped her bag on the floor and looked at me with wide, frightened eyes. "Mom," she said, her voice trembling, "I think someone's following me." I froze. "What do you mean someone's following you?" She glanced nervously toward the window. I was walking home from my shift, and there was this man. He kept walking behind me. Every time I turned a corner, he was still there. I ran the last 2 blocks just to get here. I felt a surge of panic. This was the last thing we needed on top of everything else. Now there was some stranger lurking around. I grabbed my phone and called the police immediately. They sent a patrol car to circle the neighborhood, but of course, by the time they arrived, the man was gone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat by the living room window with the lights off, watching the street outside. Every shadow looked suspicious. Every sound made my heart race. Emily eventually came out of her room and sat next to me on the couch, pulling her knees to her chest. "Do you think he'll come back?" she asked in a whisper. I put my arm around her. "Not if I can help it." But deep down, I wasn't sure. And now, on top of the money we needed, I had another terrifying thought in my mind: was Emily's mistake, putting us in danger in more ways than one. That night was the longest night of my life. I barely blinked, sitting by that window, watching the rain slick streets. Every time headlights passed, my heart jumped into my throat. My mind kept running through 1,000 possibilities. Was this man just a random stranger? Or had Emily gotten mixed up with someone dangerous while chasing this dream of hers? By sunrise, my nerves were raw. I brewed coffee just to keep my hands busy, and when Emily stumbled into the kitchen, her face still pale from last night, I knew she hadn't slept either. "Mom," she said quietly, "I don't want to walk to work today." "You're not going anywhere alone," I said firmly. "I'll drive you." On the drive over, she sat in silence, staring out the window. At one point, I reached over and squeezed her hand. "We're going to get through this," I told her, though I wasn't entirely sure I believed it. After dropping her off, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I drove straight to the pawn shop, determined to speak to the owner again. Maybe I could bargain with him, work out some kind of payment plan. When I walked in, the same bearded man looked up. "Back again?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Yes," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to talk to you about that ring. Is there any way you can hold it a little longer? Just a little past the 30-day deadline? I have most of the money, I just need more time." He sighed, scratching his beard. "Ma'am, I can't promise anything. Store policy says 30 days and then it goes up for sale." I felt my chest tighten. "Please," I said softly. "That ring is all I have left of my husband. I'm begging you." He looked at me for a long moment, then finally said, "I'll hold it until the end of the month, but that's the best I can do." I nodded, tears filling my eyes. "Thank you." When I got home that afternoon, I found Emily sitting at the kitchen table with a notepad and calculator. "I called my manager," she said, without looking up. "They're giving me as many extra shifts as possible this week. I even signed up to work weekends." I sat down across from her. "Good, because we have a deadline now. End of the month. That's all the time we've got." She nodded, her jaw set. The next few days passed in a blur. Emily was hardly home between her regular job and her side gigs. She was leaving at dawn and coming back late at night. I worried constantly, especially after what happened with that man following her. One night, a storm rolled in and the power went out. I lit candles around the house and sat in the living room, waiting for Emily to get home. The wind was howling outside, rain pounding against the windows. When the front door finally opened, Emily stumbled in, drenched and shaking. "Mom," she gasped, "he was there again." I shot up from the couch. "What?" "That man, the same one. He was across the street, just standing there, watching me." I felt a cold chill run through me. I grabbed my phone and called the police again, my voice sharp this time. "This is the second time," I told the dispatcher. "You need to send someone now." Within minutes, 2 officers arrived, but once again there was no sign of the man. One of the officers suggested we stay alert and even recommended installing a security camera by the front door. After they left, Emily and I sat at the table in silence, the only sound the rain outside. "Mom," she whispered finally, "what if he's connected to the pawn shop? What if he knows about the ring and thinks we're going to buy it back?" The thought made my stomach turn. Why would anyone care that much about a ring? I asked, but my mind was already racing with possibilities. The next morning, I went to the pawn shop again this time to ask a question that had been eating at me. "Excuse me," I said, leaning on the counter. "When someone pawns something like a wedding ring, do you ever have buyers waiting to purchase it?" The man nodded. "Sometimes, especially for high-quality pieces. We have collectors who check in regularly. Why?" My blood ran cold. So there could already be someone interested in buying my ring. "Could be," he said casually. "I can't say for sure, but once it goes on display, first come, first served." I left the shop with my heart pounding. Whoever was out there watching us, if there really was someone, could be waiting for that exact day to snatch the ring forever. That night, I sat Emily down. "We don't have time to take this slow anymore. We need that money before the end of the month, sooner if possible." She nodded, determination in her eyes. "Then I'll do whatever it takes." But deep down, I was terrified of what whatever it takes might mean. 3 days later, everything came to a head. I was in the kitchen folding laundry when my phone buzzed. It was Emily, but when I picked up, all I heard was her ragged breathing. "Mom," her voice was barely a whisper. "Emily, what's wrong?" "He's here." The words shot through me like electricity. "Where are you?" I ran into the alley behind work. He followed me when I left. I think he's still here." I didn't think twice. I grabbed my car keys, shoved my feet into my sneakers, and bolted out the door. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely see straight as I sped through the streets, my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. When I reached the alley, I spotted her immediately pressed against the wall, clutching her phone. I jumped out of the car. "Emily!" I yelled. She ran to me, but then I saw him. A tall figure standing in the shadows at the other end of the alley. He wasn't moving, just watching us. "Hey!" I shouted, my voice shaking with fury. "What do you want?" He didn't answer. Instead, he took one slow step forward. That was enough for me. I yanked Emily into the car, locked the doors, and hit the gas, tires screeching as we flew out of there. We didn't stop until we reached the police station. Inside, I slammed my hands on the counter. "We're not leaving until someone takes this seriously. He's following my daughter. We both saw him this time." An officer came out and took our statements. They promised to patrol the area more frequently, but as we drove home, I couldn't shake the image of that man just standing there. This wasn't random anymore. This was deliberate. That night, Emily sat at the kitchen table, her hands trembling as she counted out cash from her tips. "We're still short," she whispered. I took a deep breath. "Then we sell something else. The TV, my jewelry, anything we don't need." "But Mom," "No buts. That ring stays with us. Your father's memory stays with us." The next morning, I listed everything I could: online furniture, appliances, even my vintage china set. By the end of the week, I'd scraped together just enough. The night before we were supposed to buy the ring back, I barely slept. I kept thinking about that man. What if he showed up tomorrow? What if he was waiting at the pawn shop the moment it opened? At sunrise, Emily and I got in the car and drove straight there. The shop hadn't even unlocked its doors yet, so we sat in the car watching the street nervously. Then I saw him. Across the road, leaning against a lamppost, was the same man, watching. Emily's grip tightened on my arm. "Mom!" "Stay in the car," I told her. I stepped out, heart hammering, and faced him. "Why are you following my daughter?" I demanded. He didn't move, didn't even blink. "Leave us alone," I shouted. At that moment, the pawnshop owner opened the door, and I rushed inside with the cash clutched in my hand. "I'm here for the ring," I said breathlessly. He nodded and went to the back, bringing out the small velvet box. When he set it on the counter, relief washed over me so strong, my knees almost gave out. But when I turned to leave, I glanced through the shop's front window and the man was gone. Just like that. It should have been over. We had the ring back. But as Emily and I drove home, neither of us spoke, because somehow I knew this wasn't the end. That man wasn't after the ring. He was after us. That night, sleep was out of the question. Emily and I stayed in the living room with all the lights on. Every little sound outside a car door slamming, a dog barking made my stomach tighten. Around midnight, we heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate footsteps on our front porch. Emily's eyes met mine, wide and terrified. I grabbed my phone and whispered, "Call 911. She nodded and dialed, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped it. Then came the knock. 3 slow, heavy knocks on the door. I froze. My heart was hammering so loudly I could barely hear the operator's voice on the other end of the line. "Who is it?" I called, my voice louder than I expected. Silence. Then a man's voice, calm, low. "Open the door. I just want to talk." I stepped closer to the door, but I didn't open it. "Talk about what?" "I think you know," he said. Emily grabbed my arm. "Mom, don't." Red and blue lights flashed outside. The man didn't even flinch. He just stepped back into the shadows as 2 police cruisers screeched to a stop in front of the house. The officers jumped out, guns drawn. "Sir, step into the light," one of them shouted. He raised his hands slowly and walked forward. When they cuffed him, Emily let out a sob of relief, a fear I couldn't tell. At the station, they let us sit in on the questioning. The man looked calm, almost bored as he spoke. "I'm not here to hurt anyone," he said. "I just want what's mine." "What's yours?" I asked, my voice trembling. He looked straight at Emily. "That ring." Emily's breath caught. "It's not yours," I snapped. "It was my wedding ring, my late husband's gift to me." He shook his head. "No, your husband sold me that ring 10 years ago." The room went silent. I felt like the air had been punched out of me. "That's impossible," I said. But he didn't look like he was lying. The officer slid the box across the table. We checked the shop records. The ring was sold and bought back multiple times. There's a name on the original receipt. It matches his. I stared at the ring, my mind spinning. My husband had never told me he sold it, not once. Why would he do that? Emily turned to me, tears in her eyes. "Mom, what does this mean?" I didn't know. The man leaned back in his chair. "I just want it back. That ring was promised to me. It has my family's stone in it. Look underneath. There's an inscription. My father had it engraved before he sold it." I didn't want to believe him, but my hands shook as I opened the box and turned the ring over. And there it was, an engraving I had never seen before. I felt sick. Everything I thought I knew about that ring, about my husband, came crashing down around me. Emily whispered, "Mom, what do we do now?" For the first time in my life, I had no answer. I didn't sleep at all that night. After we got home from the police station, I just sat at the kitchen table staring at that ring, turning it over and over in my hand until my fingers went numb. Why would my husband have sold it? And why hadn't he ever told me? The next morning, I made a decision. If there were answers to be found, I was going to find them, even if it meant reopening wounds I'd tried to keep shut since the day he passed. Emily sat across from me, pale and quiet. "Mom, maybe we should just give it back to him," she said softly. I looked up sharply. "No, not until I know why your father did what he did. That ring is all we have left of him, or at least I thought it was. After dropping Emily at work, I drove straight to my late husband's best friend, Mark. He'd known my husband since they were teenagers, and if anyone had answers, it was him. When Mark opened the door and saw me standing there, holding that ring, his face changed. "Jane," he said slowly, "I was wondering when this would come up." "Come up?" I demanded. "Mark, did you know about this? Did you know my husband sold my wedding ring?" He motioned me inside, rubbing the back of his neck. "Sit down. There's something I need to tell you." I sat on his couch, clutching the ring in my palm. "About 10 years ago," he began carefully, "your husband came to me. He said he needed money, fast, more money than I could lend him. Something about a mistake he made years before. He said it was the only way to make it right." "What mistake?" I pressed. Mark hesitated. "He didn't tell me, just said it was from before he met you, that if he didn't fix it, it could hurt your family." I felt a chill run down my spine. "So he sold my ring?" Mark nodded slowly. "He said he'd buy it back as soon as he could, but then he got sick, and, well, he never got the chance." My throat tightened. This whole time I had thought that ring was a symbol of our perfect marriage, but now it felt like a secret I'd been carrying unknowingly. I drove home in silence, gripping the steering wheel so hard my hands ached. When I pulled into the driveway, Emily was already there waiting on the porch. "Mom, we got another letter," she said, holding a plain white envelope. My stomach dropped. "From who?" "No name on it, just this." She handed it to me. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 5 words scrawled in black ink. "Bring the ring. Tomorrow night." No address, no signature, just those words. Emily's hands were shaking. "Mom, this is getting scary. What do they want from us?" I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. "I don't know, but tomorrow night we're going to find out." The next day felt like the longest of my life. Every sound, every car that passed by the house made my chest tighten. I kept checking the envelope, as if it might change its message if I stared at it long enough. By sunset, my nerves were frayed. Emily sat on the couch, knees pulled to her chest. "Mom, we don't have to go," she said quietly. I shook my head. "If we don't go, this will never end. Whoever wrote this wants the ring and maybe answers. And I need answers too." We drove out just as night fell. The air was cool, the roads nearly empty, and the whole time I gripped the steering wheel like my life depended on it. The address wasn't listed, but there were directions written on the back of the letter, vague, almost cryptic, leading us to the edge of town near an abandoned lumberyard. When we pulled in, the place was silent, except for the crunch of gravel under my tires. My headlights swept across a row of broken-down sheds, casting long, eerie shadows. Emily reached for my hand. "Mom, I'm scared." I squeezed her fingers. "Me too, baby, but we stay together." I parked and stepped out, the ring clutched tightly in my fist. "Hello?" I called out into the darkness. A figure stepped out from behind one of the sheds. It was the same man. His hands were in his pockets, and for the first time I noticed he looked less threatening tonight, tired even. "You came," he said. "Tell me why this ring matters so much," I demanded, my voice shaking but firm. He walked closer until the dim light from my car caught his face. His expression was calm, but there was pain in his eyes. "This ring belonged to my mother first," he said. "Your husband bought it from my father during a time when we were desperate. My father only agreed to sell it because your husband promised he'd return it once he got back on his feet." I felt my chest tighten. Why didn't he ever tell me? The man gave a small shrug. Maybe he was ashamed. Maybe he thought he could fix it quietly. But when he died, that promise died with him. And I wanted to make sure my family's history wasn't lost. Emily stepped forward, her voice trembling. "So all this time you were just trying to get back something that was yours?" "Yes. he said simply. "I didn't mean to scare you. I just didn't know how else to get your attention. I tried letters. I tried asking at the shop. No one ever called me back." I stood there, the weight of everything crashing over me, my husband's secret, the pawn shop visits, the sleepless nights. And then I opened my hand, holding the ring out toward him. But before I could speak, a second car pulled up fast, headlights blinding us. Emily gasped and grabbed my arm. Two men got out, big, rough-looking, and started toward us. The first man stiffened. "Those aren't with me," he muttered under his breath. My heart leapt into my throat. "Then who are they?" The taller of the two men barked, "Hand it over, lady, the ring." And just like that, I realized we weren't just dealing with family history anymore. Someone else wanted this ring badly enough to come here, in the dead of night. Emily's grip on my arm tightened. "Mom," I turned to the man. "If this ring means so much to you, then why are there others after it?" But before he could answer, the taller man lunged forward. Everything happened at once. The taller man lunged, grabbing for my wrist. I stumbled back, clutching the ring so tightly I could feel it cutting into my palm. Emily screamed, and the first man, the one who'd been following us for weeks, stepped between us and the attackers. "Back off," he shouted, but they didn't. The second man grabbed him by the collar and shoved him hard against the shed. I didn't think I just acted. I grabbed a piece of lumber lying nearby and swung it with every ounce of strength I had. It cracked against the ground near the attacker's feet, startling him long enough for the first man to break free and shove him back. Suddenly, sirens wailed in the distance. The men swore and bolted toward their car, peeling off into the night before the police even arrived. When it was over, I sank to my knees, shaking so badly I could barely breathe. Emily knelt beside me, crying into my shoulder. The man whose name I finally learned was David crouched down in front of me. "You didn't have to protect me," he said softly. "Yes, I did," I said through gritted teeth. "This has gone far enough. I want the truth, all of it. Why are strangers coming after us over this ring?" David hesitated, then nodded. "Because that stone isn't just valuable, it's rare. My father told me it was part of a family inheritance, one that was supposed to be split among his siblings. But when times got bad, he sold it to your husband. Some of my relatives never forgave him for letting it go. They think getting it back will make them whole again, financially and otherwise." I stared at the ring, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. My husband sold it to help someone else, didn't he? That's what Mark meant when he said he made a mistake. David nodded. He told my father he'd made a bad business deal that could ruin him. Selling the ring was his way out and his way of keeping you safe. Tears welled up in my eyes. For so long, I'd thought of the ring as just a symbol of my marriage, of love and commitment. But now I saw it differently, as a symbol of sacrifice. My husband had carried that burden alone just to protect us. Emily took my hand, her voice small. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I just thought I was doing what I had to do to live my life." I pulled her into a hug. "We all make mistakes, baby. What matters is that we learn from them." Then I turned back to David. "Take it," I said, holding the ring out to him. He blinked. "Are you sure?" "Yes. It belongs to your family, and I think my husband would want it back with the people he made that promise to." David's eyes softened as he took it carefully from my hand. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You don't know what this means to us." When the police finally arrived, we gave them a full report. They promised to track down the men who attacked us, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. On the drive home, Emily and I didn't speak much, but when we got back, we sat on the porch watching the sunrise. "Mom," she said finally. "Yeah?" "Maybe we could start over. Try to do better, together." I smiled, pulling her close. "I think that's exactly what we're going to do." For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt light again. The ring might have been gone, but something better had taken its place: understanding, forgiveness, and a chance to rebuild. And that, to me, was worth more than any stone could ever be. The end. Please like and subscribe for more rich stories like this. Let us know in the comments below which lesson you learned from this story and where you are watching from and what time you are currently watching this video. Also, if you really love this video and want to support the channel directly, you can hit that super thanks button below.